Hello, and welcome to TD's Pokemon Lair. I am TD, and this is the Lair. Today, we'll be unboxing a box of 10 Pokemon cards I sent to PSA over a year ago, and they sent them back in this little box, professionally packaged, so that I can get them back safe and sound. Let me get them out of the box and see what grades we got. Let's go. Looking at this card, you can see that it looks really clean on the front surface. The holographics look really nice in the light. Looking at our centering from top to bottom and left to right, I think they're pretty close to tolerance. And finally, looking at our edges and our corners, I think they're really nice and clean. Looking at the back of the card, the surface and graphics are awesome. I don't see any damage there. Looking at our centering, from left to right, looks pretty good, and top to bottom, I think it's within tolerance. Finally, looking at our corners and our edges, our two top corners and our bottom right corner all have very slight damage, but the rest of the card looks good. And we're going to get a grade of near mint 8. Wait a minute, that should have been a lot better grade than that. Probably should have been at least a 9. We are looking at a 2000 Pokemon game base to Hitmonchan-Holo number 8 card. Looking at the front surface and the holographics of this card, you can see they look really good in the light, and the front surface is nice and clean. Looking at our centering from side to side, I think it's within tolerance. From top to bottom, I think it's a little towards the top. And finally, looking at our corners and our edges, I think they're clean from damage. As we look to the back of the card, you can see that the surface and graphics are really clean and nice. Looking at our centering from top to bottom and left to right, I really think they're within tolerance. And looking at our corners and our edges, the only thing I can see is some very, very slight damage to the corners. Wow, I think this is going to be a nice card. And our grade is going to be a near mint 7. What the hell? That is highway robbery. That should have been way better. Let us take a look at a 2000 Pokemon game base to Magneton-Holo number 9 card. Looking at the front surface of this card, you can see that from a quick glance it looks really great. The surface and everything looks nice. At close inspection of the hull, there's a scratch just under the Magneton image there on that holographics. Looking at our centering, it looks pretty good on the front. And finally, looking at our edges and our corners, I don't see any damage. Taking a look at the back of the card, you can see that the surface looks really clean. The image and graphics are nice. Looking at our centering, I think it's great and well within tolerance from top to bottom and left to right. And finally, looking at our edges and our corners, I think there's some slight damage to the two right corners and the lower left corner. And that's going to give us a grade of near mint 8. Wow, with that scratch, I thought we'd get a lower grade. This card is a 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Ponyta, the first edition number 64 card. Looking at the front surface of the graphics of this card, I don't see any dirt damage or creases or bends. Looking at our centering, I think it looks really good from side to side and top to bottom, probably within spec. And finally, looking at our corners and our edges, I don't see any damage that will affect our grade. As we turn this card over and look at the back of the card, the surface of the card and graphics are nice and clean. I don't see any damage. Looking at our centering, I think it's within tolerance. It looks really good. And finally, looking at our corners and our edges, the only thing I can see is some slight damage to the lower right corner. And that's going to give us a grade of mint 9 for this Ponyta. Nice, nice, nice. Let's look at this 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Psyduck, the number 65 card. The front surface of this Psyduck card looks clean. I don't see any damage, any dirt or problems there. Looking at our corners and our edges, they're really clean and no problems there. But as we get to our centering, if you look at it, it is pretty good from top to bottom, but it's definitely off to the left and definitely out of the 10 spec. As we look at the back of the card, you can see that the surface and graphics are nice and clean. There's no issues there. Looking at our edges and our corners, surprisingly, they're pretty clean. And finally, looking at our centering, it is off to the right, which is commensurate with the front being to the left. That's going to give us a grade of mint 9. Wow. If that centering would have been better, we would have got a 10. Let's look at a 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Rattata, a first edition number 66 card. Looking at the front surface of this card, you can see that it's nice and clean. I don't see any dirt, damage, creases, or bends. Looking at our centering, I think it's pretty good, probably within tolerance, especially from top to bottom, left to right, possibly out of tolerance. And finally, our edges and our corners are really clean. As always, we look at the back of the card, and it's looking just as good as the front, nice and clean. There's no damage to the surface. Looking at our centering, I think it's slightly to the right, but could be intolerance for the back of the card. Our top to bottom looks pretty good. And finally, getting to our edges and our corners, they're surprisingly clean. And that's going to give me a grade of Gem Mint 10, Rattata made a 10. What we have is a 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Slowpoke, a first edition number 67 card. Old Slowpoke here, surface looks great. I don't see any damage, dirt, or problems. Looking at our centering looks pretty good from left to right and bottom to top, probably within tolerance. And finally, our edges and our corners, I don't see any problems that I can find. Looking at the back of the card, it looks really clean. I don't see any problems with the surface, no damage, dirt, or anything like that. Finally, looking at our centering from side to side, I think it's within tolerance, and bottom to top, I think the same. And looking at our edges and our corners, I find them very clean. And that's going to give us a grade of Gem Mint 10. Slowpoke did a good job. Let's examine this 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Squirtle, the first edition number 68 card. Looking at the front surface of this card, I see no dirt, damage, creases, bends, or anything like that. Looking at our edges and our corners, I think they're really nice and clean. And finally, looking at our centering from top to bottom and right to left, I think they're all within tolerance. As we turn the card over and look at the back, it's looking just as good as the front. I don't find any damage, problems, or anything with the surface of the card. Looking at our centering, I think it's within tolerance from right to left and top to bottom. And looking at our edges and our corners, I can't find anything with those areas. And that's going to give us a grade of Gem Mint 10 for Squirtle. Man, I really like it. Let's look at a 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Voltorb, a first edition number 69 card. Taking a first glance at this card, the graphics and the surface look really great. Our centering is pretty much spot on, looks pretty good within tolerance. And our edges and our corners are really clean, but taking a second glance at the surface of this card, there is a dent going from the front to the back of the card, like somebody dropped something on this card, like a corner or something on this card, just under the word speed in the center of the card. And the back of this card looks just as clean as the front. I don't see any problems with the surface. There might be some slight centering problems towards the top, and our corners and our edges look really clean. There might be some slight damage to the upper left, but we do have that ding from the front going to the back, just between the Pokeball and the lower Pokemon upside down Pokemon word, just above the E and the K, the end of the K. And that's going to give us a grade of near mint 7. I'll take that one. I thought it'd be worse. Let's look at a 2000 Pokemon Team Rocket Zubat, a first edition number 70 card. At first glance, this card looks really nice. Our centering looks good from top to bottom, left to right. Our edges and our corners look pretty good for damage. But on the surface of the card, there actually is a crease or bend just on the top of the edge of the card, about a third of the way from the right side. Looking at the back of the card, it looks really clean. The surface looks good. That crease that we see in the front is barely noticeable, about a third of the way on the top edge from the left. But looking at our centering, I think we're slightly to the right. Probably it might take us out of tolerance. And finally, our corners and our edges, I think they don't look too bad. So our grade is going to be a excellent 5. Wow, with that crease, I wasn't sure what I was going to get. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and like, and don't forget, gotta catch them all. Have a great day.